What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul with Liberty Hill Comics. Welcome to episode 56 of the Comic Book Conservators. I gotta tell you, I'm super excited about today's show. Looking forward to hanging out with all of you and my co-hosts. And you may have noticed I have a returning special guest. Ooh. Although he just dropped off. Well, hopefully he'll rejoin us in a moment. I have returning special guest Peter, the Professor Alachi. And Phil's running a few minutes late, so I guess it's just me. How will we fill airtime? We'll fill airtime by saying hi to everybody. Oh, the professor's back.
I'm back. Sorry.
Professor, I was just about to announce you.
Technical issues.
I was saying that I'm thrilled to have returning contestant back in the house, Peter, the Professor Alachi, and you're presenting our B segment, and I'm super excited about it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Phil's running just a few minutes late, and Larry was unable to join us from Germany. So we're the team for the moment, and Phil will be joining in just a few minutes. So why don't we say hi to everybody? Why don't you let them know where they can find you, Professor? And then we'll kind of go through our normal routine of shout outs, and we'll do our A segment.
Hi, everyone. You can find me at Professor Peter Experiments in Conservation. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, and that's pretty much it, right? I'm pretty much available. I answer questions pretty quickly right now, and I am cooperating with Don Carter on a project right now. So we're back and forth emailing each other all the time.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of that. I love how much momentum this community has now. It seems like we have a critical mass and things are just happening. And there's so much of a difference between what you're doing right now, a la Don's Farnworth and determinate papermaking, color match fibers, versus, and I don't want to say versus in the sense of there's a conflict because we love Jerry the Jitterbug, but versus his approach.
Yeah.
And there's so much in between those two approaches on that spectrum. And there's so many people working now. It really is very satisfying to see. And speaking of folks in our hobby, thank you, Collecting Chaos, for the $10 super chat. Really appreciate it. Next episode's on you. And thank you. I think we should use that as a segue into, well, firstly, I want to say, may the 4th be with you always. And Professor, you and I are sort of trending toward no hair,
no hair.
Shirts.
I can grow little hair, but not much.
Yeah, same.
It's mostly gone.
It just looks better this way.
I think so.
But today is my daughter's 21st birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
So happy birthday, Cora. Cora's my first daughter. So she's the one who made me a father. And I think that's always special. And so I hope she's having a wonderful day. I hope she's not going to imbibe too much on the 21st birthday. Hopefully that's managed. Let's also say thank you to AG, who sponsors this episode. AG gave a super chat last week. And so if you're watching this live right now, ad-free, it's because of AG. So give AG a thank you and a thumbs up. And we really appreciate everyone being here. And we really appreciate the super chatters. Let's say hi to my buddy David. I am Starman. He said, I just bought that comic last year, supposedly Changeling Morph's first appearance. It's so minor, not sure how it even counts. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more in the A segment, but you're spot on. My buddy Mike Hugo Danner says, love the cover by Dan Atkins, a fan of both Spidey and the original X-Men back then. Hi, Robbie Josephs. I want to sign We're Still Alive. Hi, everyone. I wish the people I would want to sign were still. Oh, yes. Some of our greatest creators in comicdom are no longer with us. Absolutely. Collecting Cast says, howdy. Don Carter says, the aforementioned Don Carter says, good evening, all. Steve G, welcome, Steve. Robbie, you can do what Topps has been doing. Cut the autograph, have something else, and paste it on the comic. Pluck My Last Nervous here. Rick Nestor's here. Silver Spidey's here. Archivist Adrift, welcome, Jason. Unbothered Kitty, nice to see you, Kat, friend of the channel. Vulu is here. And what does Jason have to say? He always makes me laugh outside. We're getting a B segment before the Yellow Jacket one. We are. We'll have we're going to start with a Wasp segment, though. Salesboy Comics is here. And what do we have? Ben Stewart. Welcome, everyone. Glad to have you here. Let's jump right in. And I think Phil will be joining us momentarily, so he probably won't miss much. We got a really kind of fun book here, a different change of pace. We don't do a lot of Silver Age books, and we've never done a signature series book before, but I thought this was a really interesting sale this past week on eBay, and I thought it was worth talking about. I think it's an interesting sort of strategy for conserved books. So let's talk about it. It's also the first time we get a chance to talk in depth about Roy Thomas. We've mentioned a few times before, but X-Men number 35 is, as David pointed out, Starman pointed out, first appearance of the Changeling. Now, I will tell you, I have no idea how the Changeling gets listed on the label here with CGC. It's one panel. He's not named. He's not really in the costume that he's known for in his next full appearance. It's pretty weak. Not on the cover. He's just basically a generic member of the bad guys. What are they? The famous three? Somebody help me out in the chat. The three. Anyway, for his first appearance, second appearance of the Banshee, second crossover with Spider-Man and the X-Men. So Spider-Man appearance here. Banshee was, of course, a Roy Thomas creation. So in issue number 28 of the X-Men, Roy brings them back here. It's a neat little book. Technically a key, I suppose. Again, first appearance of the Changeling, who in an alternate reality is Morph, and then Morph, I believe, ends up in our 616. And of course, folks know him from the cartoon, and so Morph does have kind of a big following. This is kind of his original appearance, although again, he's an alternate reality version of Changeling that ends up in the 616 ultimately. So how important is that? I don't know. You be the judge. Median grade 7.0, 1,877 in Universal, 151 in Signature. Somewhat surprisingly, 52 restored. I don't know why you're restoring this book unless it's kind of accidental. Qualified 23, conserved 3. And our good luck is one of those 3 was auctioned off this past week. Although, to be fair, I don't know if they count a conserved signature series book in the signature series census or in the conserved. They probably counted in the signature series, but I'm not sure. At any rate, let's talk about Roy Thomas a little bit, and then we'll get back to the book. Roy Thomas was kind of famously the first big successful fanboy. He was famous for writing fanzines. He was a big fan of the All-Star Squadron. All-Star Comics and the Justice Society of America. He later created and wrote the All-Star Squadron. He was born, I believe, in 40 or 41. So he was reading All-Star Comics in the second half of the run, and then eventually put together as a fan a complete run. He was writing a lot of letters. He's got many letters published in the different comics. And he went to school, became a teacher, and then got a shot at DC, hated it, worked there fewer than 8 days, got an offer from Marvel, took it, and wrote his first story for Marvel that weekend, which is Modeling with Millie, number 44. Whom can I turn to? That was his first work for Marvel. That was in December of 65. And Roy Thomas, I don't know what you think, Professor. For me, he rivals Stan Lee as architect of the Marvel Universe in terms of his contribution. I think obviously Stan, with his collaboration with Jack and with his collaboration with Steve Ditko, they obviously built the foundation of the Marvel Universe. But I think in many ways, Roy Thomas put flesh on a lot of its bones and made it make a lot more sense. And just, I don't know. He also created a huge number of characters, not quite as many as Lee, but I don't know of anybody that's created more than Roy other than Stan Lee. So welcome, Phil. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Phil.
We said hi to everybody. We've already got a super chat from big supporter of the channel, Collecting Chaos. We introduced everyone. We said we were happy to have the professor here. And we're talking about this book. And I took the opportunity to talk a little bit about Roy Thomas. And now you're caught up. Why don't you say hi to everybody and let them know where they can find you?
Well, hi, everybody. I'm Phil here, as always, coming to you live from the border of Brooklyn and Queens here in New York City. You can find me on Instagram at Phantom Restoration or phantomrestoration.com. As always, happy to co-host here with Dr. Paul, and excited to jump into the segments we got here today. I was just at Graphics Con. It's an original art small convention that was going on in Manhattan earlier today, and then got some dinner. And
awesome.
Came back, so.
Apparently, you missed the note that we were showing up clean shaven, wearing black.
Oh, I do see that. Yeah.
With your spectacles as well.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, that's my fault. I see the note here.
I was making maybe a controversial statement. I was saying Roy Thomas, for me, is in many ways just as much important to the success of the Marvel Age as Stan Lee himself, because I think he took over a lot of the titles that Stan was, frankly, kind of floundering on. He made them make sense. He made them fun. He created or co-created nearly as many characters as Stan did. And I just love his work. I'm a huge fan of his work. So
didn't he write Conan initially?
He's the one who brought Conan the Barbarian to comic books, right? Mm-hmm. So I have just a partial list. Funny, I don't know if you guys know this. Stan Lee is actually in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most prolific comic book creator of all time, and they have him credited as like 343 characters created or something.
Co-creator credits.
Credit or co-creator, correct.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a number for Roy, but I bet it's about half that, if I had to guess. I have a partial list later, and it's literally just plucked from his run on Silver Age X-Men and Silver Age Avengers. It doesn't have anything that he created for DC. Like, I think it's a very incomplete list, and it fills a whole slide. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But his first credit here was, again, Modeling with Millie, which I just kind of love that's his first writing credit. His first superhero writing credit is a co-credit with Stan Lee in the Iron Man lead tale from Tales of Suspense number 73. That's January of 66. And then soon after, he's given X-Men. So he actually becomes regular writer of the X-Men with issue 20, and he's effectively, if I'm not mistaken, he's the regular writer right up until its put on life support when it goes to reprints. That was May of 66. So what is that? Almost 60 years ago. Wow. Roy Thomas is still with us. That's the good news. As a matter of fact, Mike, Hugo Danner is friends with him and introduced me, and I've exchanged email with Roy. He becomes regular writer of the Avengers about half a year later with issue number 35. And to me, he's the one who builds the Avengers legacy. I don't think the Avengers would be where they are. I don't think they'd be the franchise they are. I think it would have just been canceled in obscurity were it not for Roy Thomas. I think the years from 35, and forgive me, I don't remember his last issue, but I think he took it through pretty close to issue 100, if not beyond. I think those years are the definitive years. They're the years in which the Avengers sort of became the Avengers. And not to take anything away from the first couple issues Stan and Jack did, which were just kind of their all-star squad, which I think were very good, but I didn't have the heart and soul that the Roy Thomas Avengers had, especially when John Buscema was there. So anyway, that's my little aside. I don't know. What do you guys think? Thoughts? Comments? How about the chat?
I got a thought, but it's way out there.
Yeah.
I just find it, if you go back to the Avengers book, actually, even by contrast to that X-Men there, I mean, as someone, I just dropped off a bunch of art that I did stat recreation or replacement or overlays for, and like if you looked at that Avengers cover, it's crazy how the Avengers title is crooked. If you look,
what are you asking me to go back to?
See this Avengers cover here. If you look at the Avengers, it's actually kind of crooked and slanted down to the right. Because presumably if you look at the original art too, as they were just getting it out for production, there was a sense to make it straight, but not necessarily perfect. So things were constantly kind of, these were all hand done.
Yeah, that was a paste up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I just
literally somebody with scissors cut that out and pasted it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. If I remember correctly, this storyline. So Jason says, who is the vertically challenged X-Men on this issue on 20? I believe isn't it the Blob who's in X-Men uniform? Or is it, Mimic isn't introduced yet. It's got to be the Blob, yeah?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, I think it's the Blob. Don't remember why. Maybe Lucifer took over the X-Men, and they thought it was Professor X telling him to rob the bank, and he had the Blob on the team, something like that. All right. So this is a partial list, like I said. This is just literally the most, some of his characters from Marvel, and then most of the ones ripped from his run on Avengers and on X-Men, but some huge characters here. One of my favorites that he introduced is the Vision, but Ms. Marvel, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Ultron, Yellow Jacket, Defenders, Man-Thing, Red Sonja, Morbius, Ghost Rider, Squadron Supreme, Invaders, the Black Knight, Nighthawk, Havok. So this is his X-Men list. Havok, Banshee, Sunfire, Thundra, Archon, Killraven, Wendell Vaughn, Red Wolf, Red Guardian, Damon Hellstrom, Valkyrie. Again, this is just a small, plucked from his tenure, and there's no DC characters on there, and he had a long tenure at DC as well. So super important creator, wonderful guy. One of the fans that made it, the first fan to make it into the bigs, and I think that's absolutely great. Let's see, before I move on, let's see. Jason said, it's amazing to think the icons of the comic age, Roy Thomas wasn't even born at the beginning of the golden age. Yep, absolutely. Roy helped create Ghost Rider, says buddy Hugo. Gorilla Monkey 3000, welcome. Good to see you here. Roy is Dr. Leonard Sampson, aka Doc Sampson 2. He won't admit it, but Herb showed me a page original art from Hulk 141. His notes to Herb on top of the page. Yeah. All right. Well, there's my little aside. Let's get into this book, X-Men 35. So here's the last sale of a Universal Signature 5.0. It is a bit dated now. It's 2 years old. You could probably argue this price has come down a little bit during that time, because I think generally Silver Age books have fallen about 8% annualized since then. I didn't try to ding this. I thought that's the last sale, so be it. There were some historically higher sales, so I thought this was reasonable. Beautiful book, either way. Not a super valuable book, obviously, but still very cool, very much something that I think any real comic collector would be excited to own. I read it, by the way. It's early days. I mean, Roy's been on the book for a year now. It's still pretty awkward, and a lot of it still reads like Stan. And I don't know if that was because Roy was trying to emulate Stan or if Stan had a heavy hand in editing. But it still reads a little too much like Stan for me in terms of just the characterization, you know?
Just wanted to highlight that question.
Yeah.
Was he hired by Stan? Did Stan hire him at Marvel?
Yeah, what happened was he came to town. He came into town because he got an offer from DC, was miserable, went cross town, or really, I don't know, they might have been in the same building at the same time. So went over to Marvel and did the Marvel tryout, which at the time was, it was a page from FF22, from FF Annual 2. And they had taken the paste up before the, or maybe they had actually, probably it wasn't before, it was after the fact, they whiteouted the text, the all the script, and they did a mimeograph of it, and then they gave it to writers and they said, fill this page in, you know, fill in the little meanwhile blocks, fill in all the dialogue. And Roy did that. And Stan had Flo call him back and say, do you want a job as a staff writer? And apparently he was miserable at DC. So he's like, he had been there, I don't even know if he was there a week. He was there fewer than 10 days. So he gave DC his notice and was going to say, well, you know, I'll do 2 weeks or whatever you need. And they said, get the hell out of here. He was working for Mort Weisinger, who is known as kind of a real difficult person to work with. So he said, beat it. So Roy went back to Marvel and they put him to work that day.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was originally going to be a staff writer at Marvel, but I read his take on it. He said they immediately were having him do all this other stuff. Like Stan would say, well, I'm writing this and I don't remember the continuity here. Was this guy right-handed or left-handed? That's not a very good example, but you know, does he have force blasts or laser blasts or whatever? And Roy would be constantly answering all these questions and he never could concentrate long enough to write a story. So he said pretty quickly they moved him into, you know, writing his own books and an associate editor. And of course, yeah, I don't know who else Stan could have ever handed the reins over to at Marvel during the height of the Marvel age. I can't imagine anybody else doing it, really.
Right.
But yeah, so Conserving Non-Keys, what do you guys think?
Professor, what are your thoughts?
Or
The professor is conserving Archie, so we know what his thoughts are.
like how much do you think this went for?
No, the highlighted question on the bottom. You can see Robbie Joseph's question, yeah?
Do you think conserving non-keys is just as important as keys? Of course.
Of course. See, I told you.
Most of the books I conserve are non-keys.
I think so for a number of reasons. I think for the hobby to grow, we need a lot of practitioners, and those practitioners need a lot of practice. And it doesn't make financial sense to practice on keys. I also think all comics are important and interesting in their own right, even if they're not masterpieces. And so they should be preserved. They ought to be preserved. And if we don't do something, they're all going to be gone because they're made of an auto-destructive material. So that's my take on it.
And there isn't enough people to do it, right? I mean, I think we need
as much growth as we've experienced. We couldn't conserve 0.1% of all the comics in the world if we started now and did nothing else and all quit our day jobs, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely.
I'll toe the unfortunate line that I have to toe on the other side of that, and that is, it's definitely still it's a cost factor for most of them now, unless you're a practitioner like Paul just said, and someone getting into this, or someone like the professor who has the time to, he's experiments in conservation, that's what he's doing. So, but it is tough from simply from my perspective as someone that works on the books. I always have to have that conversation with people. Sure. Kind of like, this is the cost of the work. If it makes sense on your end, I'm happy to proceed. And oftentimes if the book is low value, naturally it makes sense to not proceed unless it's of great sentimental value. But I have a lot of optimism for the future, especially just in some of the techniques that the community has shared over the last couple of years, that give it 10, 15 years. I'm sure that there's some stuff around the corner that can make allowing more books to be conserved maybe even a little bit easier. And that will help bring that cost down and make it more accessible to more books. So, people that have early golden age collections that are 100 years old, then it's not going to be a stigma to have a clean book. It's going to be hey, we need to get all these clean, because every day that we don't, the pages are getting more brittle, and it's just going to become more of an issue to get it clean. So absolutely. Yeah. We'll do one more comment as we go on. I agree, Jason. All golden age books are keys. Not really, but they're all worth preserving. That's for sure. Hep Rioter, welcome to the show. I'm not sure the answer to your question, but because I'm not really in contact with Roy, I would just be speculating. But happy to see you here. Thanks for the question. Sorry we can't answer it. Right. So here are the CGC Graders notes. Conserved signature series, off-white to white pages, cover cleaned. One of these.
Stapled detached top of cover, crease right top of front cover, breaks color, stapled detached bottom of back cover, stapled detached top of cover, stapled detached bottom of back cover. Signed by Roy Thomas, 8/31/24.
One side of one staple, this cover's hanging on.
Yeah, barely. It's hanging on by a thread. Doesn't look too bad, though. Presents pretty well. I will say...
Fair grade, though, too. Since detached covers max out at 4, this has some defects. I think a 5. It might not make sense just based on eye appeal alone, but technically, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the technical grade seems spot on. Also, I can see why it got hit for cover cleaned. Look at this Silver Age, right hand, reading edge. We can see not quite an 1/8, but probably 3 millimeters there, right?
Yep. Shrinkage.
That's shrinkage, baby.
So why do you think they didn't fix the staples? That's weird, huh?
Oh, I think that this was...
I think
they thought they were going to try to get universal here.
Universal?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think if I see only cover cleaned and it's conserved, my red flag immediately goes up, and I'm like, there's at least a 50% chance that this was not intended to be conserved. It was a hopeful, fingers crossed, to be universal.
And I'll go so far as to say this looks like another botched hop. And I don't think the inventors of hop would argue with me. I think they would say, yep, every time we see this, and then we ask them what they did, and they said, well, I did double hop 3 times. And they say, don't do that.
Can I make a quick comment too? Just
Yeah,
because this is related.
of course.
So I had
It's your show.
in the last I'm just one of the people here. I'm just involved. I had the same conversation with 2 professional pressers, but also one of them kind of branches out more into I guess both of them branched out more into traditional cleanings. So I'm talking about cleanings too that aren't even necessarily bled, hop, just standard just the standard deacidification bath that we talk about and do.
Right.
So, and one of them reached out basically and said, "Hey, we've been washing they specified it was just the covers, so it wasn't the entire book. They've been washing just the covers on several books. They all came back universal, but now in a group, some came back conserved, and they were confused as to why that happened." And they were thinking that it was, they can just be reassessed or something, or maybe the graders were having a bad day or something like that. And I confidently can say that it's inherent in the book. I was trying to tell them that the ones that got back universal was because as the graders graded the book in front of them, there were no tells that it was clean, but the ones that did come back conserved did have tells. There's oftentimes very little within our control, and this is a complicated, nuanced part of our hobby that is confusing us, and it's especially not problematic, but it comes with complications in the profession where basically the issue was, hey, these were supposed to be universal, so I'm not sure how I'm supposed to remedy these. And that my initial thing was, this is why I personally always put the stipulation out for those types of deacidification baths. Yes, it could be universal, but you have to expect it could be conserved too, and that's not within my control. And because of that, most people opt to not do it unless you're already conserving the book, so it doesn't matter. But if you're going for that universal grade, people need to understand that they're just like we just called out this tell here, where we can see the shrinkage. There's obvious things that CGC knows and have been looking for. And it's totally understandable. It's not, if anything, really, these books are conserved. They should be conserved, labeled. So, just wanted to put that out there.
Absolutely. It's a conserved book. And I think let's circle back to the staples, but let's finish the assessment. You can see here on the back, the shrinkage is more or less evenly distributed between the front and the back. I think you can see the slight color difference between the yellow of the interior pages and the cover on that reading edge. But it presents really well, right? And I do think, as the professor alluded to, there's potential in this book. I mean, if it's going to be conserved anyway, crack it and repair the staples. What is this book then? It's at least a 6. I don't know if it's a 6.5, a 7. It's in that ballpark.
I would go 7.
Like a 7. Looks like a 7 to me.
Yeah, I would say it looks like a 7. That's what I'm saying. Like, just there's no. But I often just do this little gut check with the grades, and I just look at it and I go, well, it can't. Like, I've seen worse 6s. So it can't possibly be lower than a 6, right? Like that would be insane, right? I often do that just to put a floor on a book. I often do that, right?
Yeah.
So I do think this says to me 6.57. That said, you saw the value. Everyone saw the value of the 5.0 Roy Thomas Signature Series Universal, $400. This book here sold this past week, and I want you to guess what it sold for.
I'll go 3K. I mean 300.
300.
He said 3K. He's locked in.
3K would be too much. Yeah.
We all
gonna
love
go
Roy Thomas.
$29.95. No,
Okay.
no, this is an interesting, not a kind of unconventional one compared to a lot of the ones that we normally go over. It's signed.
Yeah.
It's a little bit later.
Yeah. Hugo Danner made a comment that he has published letters in several letters pages, and if anybody wants his signature on those, he will happily sign them on their behalf.
Sure.
Sales Boys in at 315. Collecting Chaos is at 290. Pluck My Last Nerves at 250. We're filling out the ranges here.
Doc, can you remind me the $400 one? What was that?
Well, it was 5.0. Signature
Universal or
series.
that was also
Yeah,
signature
Universal.
series.
Universal.
Yeah.
Oh, Universal.
It was Universal Signature Series. So we're doing 2 signature books, both signed by Roy Thomas.
Gotcha.
Both X-Men 35 in 5.0. Jason's in it he's doing the split thing like a lot of businesses are doing right now in their quarterly reports. They're saying we'll make 29 cents a share in profits unless there's a recession, then we'll make nothing. So he's at 3001 or 301.
I'll go 340.
340.
I think there's probably a lot of compression here, and just for the signature itself, you probably got at least an extra $100. The book's 200 and change probably at the Conserve. So,
By the way, welcome to the show, Jim. Regular. All right. Looks like guesses have slowed down. Why don't we do a reveal? 315. I think that's the exact number. Yeah, Sales Boy hit it on the nose.
kind of suspicious, Sales Boy.
Pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
nice guess.
79% of Universal.
So we like to
That's
see.
That's a very positive sale. I think it presents beautifully. That helped it. I also think, it would be slightly different because it wouldn't. Nobody can crack these and work on them and still keep the signature series. You'd then have to have it JSA authenticated, or are there some folks who can do it? Phil's raising his hand. Phil can do it. It's almost like we planned that, Phil.
You got to be approved. I mean, I just happen to be someone that got approval for Matt Nelson, so yeah. But I think I any official CGC contractor, of which I'm not, but I guess those contractors are those with a relationship where they know, certain.
There's
certain
basically
folks who they
vetted.
work on.
Yeah.
Is CGC authenticating signatures now?
Well, yes.
JSA through
They
CGC.
purchased JSA, and the JSA is technically a separate division, but when you submit to CGC, you can click a box and pay an extra fee, and they'll walk it down the hall, and they'll get it authenticated by JSA, and then they'll slab it. So it is, for all intents and purposes, CGC is doing it, although they're technically not. In the same way that, they technically, CGC does not do cleaning and pressing, right? They have an affiliated sister company that does it, so it's not technically.
It's down the hall from them, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. So, what do y'all think of that?
I think that's a decent price. I think has to do with Roy Thomas's signature.
Yeah.
More so than the grade, right?
Sure.
On a book like that, I assume it's not too tough to find that book in that grade. So
This is kind of my point, and I'm thinking like, if you have a mid-grade book that you want to conserve, and the creators are still alive, and the creators are doing regular signings with CGC, one way to get universal money for your book or close to it would be to go ahead and get a signature series done.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
You have to look at the cost of how much the signature is and the grading, and you could be
that book in that grade is worth a fraction of the signature. Like most of the value is in the signature. That is my point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So Yeah.
So
Anyway, I thought that was a really interesting kind of angle to take on a conserved book. Get it signed and then get 80% of Universal for it. Maybe
Very
even
nice.
more. I said, Silver Age, especially non-keys, have fallen 6% annualized over the last 2 years or thereabouts. That means that you basically got Universal money for a conserved book with the signature book. I didn't want to handicap it because I didn't want to extrapolate that, but I don't think that book in Universal gets $400 today.
No.
Yeah.
I think it's about $350. I think it's, or $325. So I think the seller here maximized the value of the conserved book by getting it signed, and I think that was really smart. And so I wanted to feature it and just chat about it. Something to think about, conservators. If you have a book that's a double or that you're going to work on and sell to create some equity for chasing a book that's more important to you, right? It's all part of the game. All right. Well, without further ado, Professor, I think we should jump into your segment.
Definitely, yes. May I, before we start this, show you my Stan Lee signed
You are...
CGC Defenders #1.
Oh, well, I didn't know we were doing show-offs, Professor. I would have shown up with some show-offs myself.
That's about the only signed copy I have.
That's
So
beautiful. Oh, that's a nice
Very cool.
Stan Lee signature too.
Yeah.
When did he sign that?
This was signed 2010, May 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what role did he play in Defenders 1? Was he editor-in-chief at that time, or was he just he was just publisher?
That I couldn't tell you. When did he leave? Around that time, right? So it could have been either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder if he was part of the creative team specifically, or just
right.
Just kind of the godfather.
Right.
I have currently only one item signed by Stan Lee, but it's the limited edition Gerber photojournal guide to Marvel Comics.
Oh, sweet.
I also had one of the Fireside books, the Origins of Marvel Comics, signed by Stan, with a short inscription on the frontispiece. But I gave that to my brother one year for his birthday.
Nice.
All right. So.
All right. So this
Take
is
it away.
So this is a very early project I did, probably a couple of years ago now. An early full conservation project, Whiz Comics number 52. I want to give a shout out to Jerry the Jitterbug, because he was doing at the time also a lot of Fawcett books.
A lot of Fawcett's, yeah.
And I love Fawcett, and he always said Fawcett is a very durable book. It's it can handle conservation, water baths, all of that. And I figured I'll do a project on this, and so I bought the book for about $50, and with shipping it came to about $50. Right, it was cheap buy, and this is maybe 5 or 6 years ago now.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. It had its flaws, of course, and it is has a number of stories from 1944. And if you take a look at the second slide, you'll see some of the flaws on it. So clearly you have a color touch on Captain Marvel's hair. Quite obvious.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, and you see some loss of color. You have rusty staples and extra staples added, right? And as it turned out at the end, the book really had only a single staple, right? So the guy who owned it ended up adding the extra staple just to stabilize the book. And you can see, like,
but it had, to be clear, it had a single staple from the manufacturer because it was a wartime book.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can see there's like stitching marks on the left-hand side of the first
I see that,
picture. which was really weird. And there was like a little thread came out when I was conserving it. I really didn't know what he did exactly in there, but he may have tried to stitch it somehow.
Yeah.
Who the heck knows? Yeah.
That's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe he was planning on binding it a la the professor.
Yeah. I bind books too, guys. Yeah. And there is writing on the cover in both ink and pencil. And I try to get rid of the writing with an eraser. Very, very, not harsh, because yellow, of course, is susceptible to removal. And I succeeded actually at the end to remove both sorts of inks, right? The ink and the pencil mark. Nice. So that's in the middle, and then on the right-hand side, you see there are tears, there are creases, and there are chipping marks on the edge there.
Sure.
And it was quite filthy at the same time, so it had to be cleaned. There is this grease mark 27 written on it. I couldn't remove that. I tried to remove it, but it ended up taking some of the red out, and I didn't want to, deal with it too much. So I left it alone there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it symbolized, 2Y or 227. I have no idea what it means.
Sure.
Yeah.
Grease pencil, I will just gently rub with a cotton round. It either comes off or it doesn't.
Yeah.
And you got to change your cotton round often. Because the grease that you pick up will then pull the color off the book, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah. That grease gets into your cotton round, and then it makes the ink around more susceptible to being lifted. So for those of you out there that might want to try cotton round on grease pencil, change the cotton round often, very often. Don't let that grease sit in the cotton round and rub it around.
Yeah. So these are the creases. You can see them close up here. And some of them break color, some of them don't break color. So these were tough to remove, some of them, right? And there's still actually some of them still on the cover till today.
Big improvement, though.
Big improvement when you're going to see them, yeah.
Yeah.
Next slide. And there's a color loss on the Captain Marvel circle there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see it there, some color loss. And there's some additional tears and scuff marks in the middle of the book over Captain Marvel's, under his shoulder, right? You can see it there, big tear.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? And here I mentioned the thread.
Yeah.
And
by his right arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of cool, actually. It almost looks done by a machine. Almost looks like they put it in a sewing machine.
It does look like that. Doesn't look like it was done by hand. Yeah, I agree.
That makes.
But you don't see it carrying to the rest of the book, right? Just
but
cover.
But
it's like weird.
Oh, really? It doesn't go through.
Yeah,
everything. That is a little weird.
Yeah, so it didn't carry.
All right.
And this is the color touch that shows on the inside, so you can see it. So it has to be taken care of.
Yeah.
The way I did it is I used alcohol. I used ethanol and a swab. And slowly, I was able to lift it eventually, right?
Very nice. Seems like that would be ideal to be on a vacuum table and just have the cover facing down, just put a drop of alcohol on this side and let it get sucked through and just keep replacing with another drop of alcohol until you couldn't see that ink there anymore.
Yeah, it took like 50 swabs or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Paul, I always thought that would be the most productive way to do that. But I've removed color touch the same way. And with, you're basically just buying a brand new pack of cotton swabs because you're going in. But to me, it seems like the pressure that you need to put on with the cotton swab to help lift it with the alcohol. I don't know how you would mimic that with, maybe the suction table has so much pressure. It is.
So one of the advantages of the suction table is that you don't get a lot of capillary action of the alcohol into the paper. The drop, the alcohol, whatever amount that you put there, is basically being pulled through the paper. It's picking up ink as it goes, and then it's exiting the paper and going into your, chamber, your negative pressure chamber. And that's the reason why you would want to do it that way. They both work. I think for my dollar, I would try it first on a vacuum table because I think that's less invasive. And then if you don't get the results you want, you still, you haven't burned a bridge. You can go back to cotton swabs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My issue with the cotton swabs is no matter how tedious you do it in terms of the smallest amount of alcohol and replacing the swabs immediately, the alcohol just wants to, capillary action is just pulling it out. And so to a certain degree, it's solubilizing the ink and it's spreading it into the paper deeper, right? And now you're chasing that. And
exactly.
That's why my preference would be to go in and get it on a vacuum table. But yeah, both work.
Yeah, it worked at the end, which is
I've done it that
not
way.
every time it works, but this one it did work at least. And the tape was of unknown nature, I would say. We didn't know what kind of glue it was or anything.
This is butcher's tape.
Butcher's tape, okay.
Isn't it?
It lifted with water.
Yeah.
Water.
Oh, that's what we like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was little residue left, and I was able to scrape it off essentially right at the end.
Yeah. That looks to me like the tape they use at the butcher shop.
And the back had staining on it, quite dirty. No paper lost though, which is really
nice.
Yeah.
Sweet book.
So pretty solid book, yeah.
Yeah, what a cool book.
As far as the staining, again, it looks like oil stain of some sort that I couldn't really figure out. And
if only you had the seventh stone back in 2000.
Exactly. I was going to mention Jim, and I said to myself, maybe Jim's stuff would have worked now on this, right?
Probably. Yeah.
And then that penetrates to the interior, of course. The staining.
A little bit of translucency in the paper there.
Yeah. And there's some light moisture at the spine area at the bottom.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rushing you. I
keep
thinking as you pause that you're done.
You can't see it well. It's right left picture at the very bottom. You can see moisture stain there.
I really want a Baby Ruth right now. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's probably the glue. You may be low in glucose.
The best candy ever. This is the after, so you can see how the book looks like right now.
Very
nice. Wow, yeah, you're right. That pen came right out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you say you used on that? Just alcohol?
Alcohol, yeah. Alcohol did it. And of course, we went in the bath, and the bath may have some additional cleaning effect. And I had some little bit of Triton X in there at the time. And that washed off some of the stuff. You would have thought the 27 or the 2Y would have been gone too, but that didn't take care of it, right? But it looks so much cleaner. I did some leaf casting on the spine area and on the edges.
Yeah, the grease pencil is basically like wax, and funny enough, wax is not soluble in alcohol or even acetone. So you need different solvents for that if you wanted to take a solvent approach. I usually just do mechanical on wax pencil, but then again, I often leave it too unless it's super distracting. I think I would have probably left this, but if I was going to go after it, I would do mechanical on it.
Yeah. So, and on the right hand side, you see the color touch there is gone also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Which is nice. Yeah.
I mean, the rule of thumb is really that you can't remove color touch with alcohol. So seeing, most people would have said you just need to cut this out, just cut a chunk out, which would be a shame because the paper's intact, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So seeing the success here is really great.
Yeah. And if you look
probably,
yeah.
due to the nature too, as you mentioned earlier, as Jerry mentioned, these boots are tanks. I would imagine you're not going to get a good result like that on if you got like a Spider-Man 3 with color touch all along the black and the bottom there, Doc Ock, and you're trying to remove that with alcohol. I would tread lightly, my friend, because you're probably going to get different results.
Great point, Phil.
Yeah. And the colors, I have to say, like Jerry said, are beautiful. Still remain.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They didn't go
This is
away.
great work.
And you said you did an aqueous bath
Aqueous
here.
bath, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got disassembled. The extra staples got removed, and all the wraps got an aqueous bath, and the wrap itself got an aqueous bath.
What a beautiful.
And I removed all the ink, as you can see. No more writing on. So very, very lightly with an eraser. It took me about an hour to do. Right, very, very light for a while, and just kept at it. Right. That's my method usually with ink. Usually, if it's written, I go over it with an eraser, and it does lift eventually, and then the bath will take care of it.
Sure.
You just need patience with it, right? And
patience is in small demand, as in great demand, small supply.
Yeah. And this is the interior now.
Wow.
So
what a nice book.
See some of the scuffing on the left that didn't press.
I see that. Yeah. But
yeah, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try the stacking method that Jim invented. Right. See if that will relax some of these creases.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing different variants on that wet stack for all my presses lately.
Yeah.
I talked to Chris Trump, who does it slightly differently than Jim. Same concept, same number of sheets, just different location of the sheets. And that's been working really well for me as well.
And then the next slide shows the centerfold, a single staple holding everything together, a Nazi story, of course, Hitler and all that. Hitler and Mussolini, and is Hitler biting the foot of Mussolini or something?
He's an ankle biter.
Okay.
Ankle biting is, I think, a reference to a specific. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think it's specifically the ankle, not the foot.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what was going on there.
Like a bootlicker?
Bootlicker's different.
A bootlicker. Let me see.
Ankle biter, bootlicker. I mean, it's pretty close. So I don't know.
Yeah. Sales boy, thank you for the super sticker. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You want to show it off, Professor?
Nice. Hey.
Oh man, that's quite a job.
Yeah.
Really beautiful outcome.
And this is before I started using betaine on the interior. Betaine would have added even better
Jason
straps.
Jason wanted to know about that, actually.
About betaine, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, whether or not you thought this was a good candidate.
Yeah.
What did you say, butane?
Could have been, but this was before betaine, So.
Betaine.
Betaine. I say betaine, you say betaine.
No, I think he was saying butane.
Butane, no, butane.
Like lighter fluid.
Butane would be too dangerous. Do not use butane. Use betaine. Yeah. And this is the.
So obviously, it's still in your collection. It's raw.
Yeah.
I don't see why this book wouldn't grade as universal.
You think?
Why is it not? Tell me what's not universal.
Casting done to the edges. That's why.
Oh. You didn't mention that, did you? Did I miss that? All right, show us.
I did mention I supported this area here with
okay.
leaf casting.
Okay.
So
I see it.
Probably won't pass muster.
No. Okay.
You use conserved grade probably.
Still, beauty.
Definitely conserved grade. And the back side is much cleaner. I couldn't get rid of the spot at the end. But
that
quite a bit.
That baby Ruth is just glistening.
Look, though, at arm's length, how well it presents, right?
It presents really well.
Incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
This
sometimes
was-
we use this really harsh lighting, which we should use, because that's how CGC is going to grade it. And
Yeah.
it really shows off all of the errors. But, most of the time you're not looking at it under that harsh lighting. You're looking at it more like in lighting where the professor has it. And that book looks great.
Yeah, it does.
So no hop, no bled.
No.
I feel like this back cover would have benefited from bled.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. But this is before I knew of the methods, right?
Sure, of course.
I didn't even own the lamps then, or I mean, I could still do it, right? But
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
haven't burned
I
a bridge. That's one of the great things
Yeah.
about conservation, right? You can go back and do
I think
that.
minimal approach for this book would be fine, and I'm happy with
course,
it the way it is.
Absolutely.
I'm going to be submitting some of my books to CGC soon, I think, because I haven't really been submitting anything to CGC, and it's time to know how my work will stand with CGC.
Yeah,
it's nice
I'm going
to
to send some stuff in. I send stuff in regularly, but I'm gathering things right now because I'm planning on going to HeroCon, and I thought I may as well bring some books with me and just drop them off because that's easier than packing them up to send them to CGC. I'll let them deal with the packing up, and I'll just bring them.
Right.
So I'm in that process myself of just prepping a few books. And I always have books that people send me. I'm always working on other people's stuff. So I have some stuff from other people at the moment as well.
Mm.
But wonderful project, Professor.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
book.
And
Thank you. And
did you want to pitch what's going on your channel right now?
yeah, I just want to say that currently on my channel, you can watch me do leaf casting where I'm trying to match the colors of the cover to the fiber itself, right? So you can see the method I'm using is from Don Farnsworth, and the color of the leaf casting is the same as the back cover. And the way I evaluate that is actually with a colorimeter. It's called
Don't we say colorimeter?
Colorimeter. Okay.
Colorimeter?
Okay. It's a spectrophotometer that reads colors, right?
Colorimeter.
Okay. And it's called the Color Muse.
Yeah.
And it's not a high-end one, but it does the job, right?
I mean, I would say so. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's a great match.
Yeah. So
I was watching your video on this, and it's really fascinating. I mean, the work of, we've mentioned Don Farnsworth and determinate paper making before, a pioneer in leaf casting for conservation, and really one of the most systematic leaf casters ever, right? I think he's very prolific. To me, he's done things with leaf casting that truly do seem like magic. I think he's set the bar. And so this method that he published for combining all these fibers, and you've adapted it beautifully to comic books, I want to say, because his equipment is very expensive. He what did he have, 20 or 25 different fibers in terms of the source material, and so you had a limited palette of fibers, and you have a relatively inexpensive colorimeter, and you adapted it to comic books amazingly. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I was saying, I feel like we've reached a certain mass where we just have a critical mass where we're just moving comic book conservation forward now, right? This is a collaboration between you and Don Carter, and it's based on the work of Don Farnsworth, and it's just taking these methods and adopting them for comic books in ways that make sense for our hobby, and I really applaud it. So I would love to have you back on to talk about that when you have sorted it all out and have your conclusions and have recommendations for us. And it should absolutely be included in practical applications for our book on leaf casting for comic books. I mean, just phenomenal work.
Definitely. I was going to say you can do leaf casting with just white colors, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, CGC isn't going to grade you on that. But I think going forward, CGC should, right? They should
There's a
look
lot
at
of people that say that.
yeah.
I'm not certain myself. I'll tell you why. I think when you start perfectly matching things, then you start getting into where there's the possibility of deception again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
restoration or deception.
Well, here's
no, not necessarily.
Yeah, like just it being so perfectly matched that they can't tell it's leaf cast.
Oh, I see.
They don't know where the original starts
and also
casted color touch ends. You know?
Not for nothing, but imagine like a black cover on a comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to leaf cast it with black? And then what if it was black with a red stripe? Are you going to leaf cast black with red paper down the middle? Like you could imagine starting to basically color touch with pulp. And
okay.
I'm not trying to create like a slippery slope argument here. I'm just saying that for me, I like the fact that the flaw is there and it's known and there's no possibility of deception. And I think that's one of the strengths of conservation. There are people, I'm going to embarrass myself a little bit here with my lack of knowledge. Hopefully somebody, either one of the two of you or somebody in the chat knows more about this than I do. But in certain cultures, you reuse things and you don't try to restore them. You leave them with their flaws. And I know, like, for example, in Japanese culture, if you break a piece of pottery, you actually will solder it. They have a whole industry of people that are able to solder pottery back together with gold. And then they polish it out. And now you have a little vein of gold running through your maybe 100 or 200 or maybe 1,000-year-old pottery for all I know. And maybe that's pottery that's been in your family for 500 years. Yeah. And somebody dropped it and broke it. And now you have a story in your family tree about your great-great-great-great-grandfather who broke that, but it was repaired and it's still in the family, right? My take is I am sympathetic to this approach. And again, you could have super glued that piece of pottery, or you could have soldered it with something white and then repainted it. But they chose very deliberately to solder it with a material that would show up as a vein that gives it character and that is part of the provenance of that piece. And that argument appeals to me. So I am not as hung up as some people are on matching color. Now, I don't want it to be jarring and I don't want it to look unnatural. So I want to have a sympathetic color palette, but I'm not concerned with matching it perfectly. That's just my take on it. And Collecting Chaos says sympathetic restoration. Thank you. I was actually looking for the specific Japanese word for that, but you're absolutely right. Sympathetic restoration is a more generic term for what I'm describing. DS, welcome to the show. With leaf casting, can you see the casting under a black light? Well, yeah, it's paper. So depending on the color match, it's probably going to show up a little bit differently, but it's going to show up like paper.
Yeah.
Yes, Phil?
I was going to say, I think in theory, I totally agree with you, but only because of the undeniable aspect that we're already working with a 40-point grading system on these books. Like, we're already like scrutinizing all these little tiny finger bends and spine nicks and all that. So I think just based on that principle alone, there's too many people that like it's like they can't help it if they were to see a book that was cast with just white paper, they'd be like, this just looks wrong. Like something about this. Whereas if it was more natural,
and that's why I said I don't want it to be jarring. I'm not using white paper, right?
Yeah. You're just saying more to be perfect. Yeah.
I'm using an off color,
I understand.
An antique white or a bone kind of color, right?
Yeah.
So I completely agree with the jarring aspect, and also I get that my argument completely breaks down if you're leaf casting a big chunk of the front cover and all of the graphics are missing, right? Like obviously that has been leaf casted, right? There's no real possibility for deception there. So I'm just saying in general, that's how I feel. I'm also not even really putting it out as like an argument, like people need to be on my side of this debate, right? Like I like Camaros. If you like Mustangs, man, knock yourself out. I'm not saying Camaros are better. I'm just saying it's my preference, you know? Yeah. I mean, they are better, but I'm not saying that.
So I just bought.
We should do. Sorry, DS as a follow-up. We should do some. We should take some pictures of some leaf cast under UV and post them on our socials for DS.
Sure.
DS, if you're in our Facebook group, let's do a call to folks who are doing leaf casting to post some pictures there of their leaf casting work under blacklight. I'll do so. Cool. That'd be fun. So Sales Boy with another super chat. He says, "Keep it moist." Thanks, Sales Boy. Appreciate you.
So I have another book, a Batman book that has a black cover, has a rodent chew on the top left, that big bite taken out. The entire thing is almost all black, right? There's like a chunk of the word Batman is taken out. That I will not replace with red, right? I will keep it black, right? So I want to do this project where I want to put the black color back on the book, so we have the entire cover now.
So you're going to leaf cast the corner with black construction paper.
And I want to try to match it, right? Match it with the...
This is my point.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do double-sided casting, so it's...
I do double-sided casting.
Ah, that's the real... that's the real...
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's the plan, yeah.
That's
That's my next project, and I probably won't get to it in a while, but this project I'm working right now came out pretty good, actually.
Oh,
this is the
nice.
I mean, it's a rough book, but I leaf casted it and it's done at least. Right?
Beautiful.
We're holding quite nicely.
Don't spoil too much more. I want to have you back on to do a full show about it, actually.
Yes, I will. Yeah.
We'll just leave that as a teaser, but
we will.
Because I genuinely, and the push and pull here too is that while I personally am not working really hard to get perfect matches on color, I'm thrilled. I'm really excited that you are pushing to do double-sided leaf casting on a Batman book with black construction paper on one side, because I want to see the envelope pushed, right?
Yeah.
So by no means am I saying, this shouldn't be done. I'm just saying, here's another take on it, right? So yeah. I think that's awesome. That'll be another great one to have you back for. I don't know about you guys. I have too many projects and not enough time.
Dream.
No.
You, Phil. Yeah.
When I'm saying I'm drowning in comics, I'm literally literally drowning in comics.
Yeah.
Man, that's I don't like that and maybe it's just because I can make the time, but I feel like just because I constantly have so many things, I don't do as much R&D as I used to when I first started. And I even I archived a lot of my posts, but I was just trying random things and stuff where I'm not as curious anymore. I'm a little more regimented in my ways. So it's great to see other people doing stuff, because it kind of helps fuel my fire to even just like the gels, Professor, when you were showing how those were using, I was just like, this is something where why are more people talking about this? And you were like, yeah, you can just make these at home. They're super easy. It's like, I was worried about how to get these. And you're like, you're overthinking. And I was like, I'm overthinking.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a study that I thought was really fascinating, and I think speaks to this a bit, that there was a study done in an art class. It was a pottery class. And at the start of the class, the professor split the class. Half the students were told, you just have to make one pot, make the best pot you can possibly make, submit it for a grade. Your grade will be based on how beautiful the one pot you make is, how functional, whatever, the different metrics it was graded upon. The other half of the class, he said, how beautiful your pot is does not matter. You're going to be graded on your output. Whoever makes the most pots is, you know, if you make over 30 pots in the semester, you're going to get an A. If you only manage 25, you're going to get a B. If you only get to 20, you get a C, etc. And then at the end of the class, they looked at all the pots, and they had outsiders come in and look at the pots and say which pots were the most exquisite, the most beautiful, and the best. And they picked from among the students who were doing volume work. All the winners were the volume winners. So in other words, even when how nice your pot was didn't matter, because all that mattered was how many pots you had, the best pots were from among the people doing the most work. So the point here is practice, because if you're practicing, your craft gets so much better just through the repetition and the practice that you end up making more exquisite stuff even than the people that are trying to make the most exquisite stuff, right? And so I think, Phil, you being in the trenches and doing the work, you know, even though you say, well, I'm not innovating or I'm not doing R&D stuff, I think you are. You don't even realize it just because of the sheer volume of work you're doing. You're making little innovations that just occur to you each day as you sort of develop your craft. And that's why your work is so exquisite, I would submit.
Yeah, I think you're on that. That's the whole hard work beats talent, right? You know.
Yeah, most of the time.
yeah. If you're putting in 80 hours a week, and that guy that's really good is putting in 10 hours a week, you're gonna catch them. I mean, that's inevitable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this last project alone took me like 32 hours to finish, right?
Jesus.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm not even done with it yet.
Yeah,
It's a lot of work.
It's an incredible amount of time we put into these funny books.
Yeah,
So
I'm
John,
very picky about things too. So.
we're not talking about ink. So we're talking about using fibers that they themselves are either dyed or have an inherent color because of the, you know, native chromophores. So no ink here. So therefore no concern about blue light or anything. So we're talking about literally, you know, like macerating black construction paper and then using that for the actual cast, right? So then it wouldn't be color touched, wouldn't be restored. It would be just leaf casted. There's another one. There's an argument in support of me and my approach. Thank you, Gorilla Monkey. Clucking Chaos says, I put a black light on one of my leaf castings, a pretty close color match, and the newer paper lit up like a Christmas tree. Yeah. So it depends on what you put in it, right? I suspect that I'm using the Keto Dimer internal sizing professor that we get from Carriage House. I suspect that's probably going to fluoresce. Would be my. I'm just guessing, but I
haven't looked at it on.
I haven't either.
Light,
so I'm interested to see.
Yeah. But this last project I used actually metal cellulose for sizing instead.
Oh, okay. How'd it work out?
Pretty well. I mean, I didn't test it, but it's pretty well. I used like 0.08% concentration of this metal cellulose. Nice. Yeah.
Hopefully you got some referrals from Jason there, Phil. Appreciate that, Jason. Does great work. Let's see. John also says, I know from collecting stamps during the war, certain inks were not available. They had to make do with whatever they got or mix. The same is true with paper, showing my ignorance. Yeah. No, understood. Yeah. And it may be different with, well, I don't know that there were paper shortages, but I don't think there were big changes in, other than one staple. I don't think there were big changes in the inks used or papers used during the war effort. Paper, as it became rationed, the books got smaller and thinner, just fewer pages. Even the paper quality, though, didn't go down until sometime in the 50s, as far as what we surveyed when we did our comic book conservation book, which is right here, available on Amazon. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. Thank you again for sponsor of this show, AG. Thank you again to Collecting Chaos and Salesboy Comics twice, who are sponsors of next week's show. Thank you so much for my regular host, Phil, and for the professor who joined us at the last moment and filled in admirably for the captain and brought along our B segment, showed us a really great job. And hopefully everybody said happy birthday to the captain, who's now the big 6-0. Even though he couldn't join us, he's here in spirit. And until next time, I want to say thank you, everybody, so much. We appreciate you. Check us out in the Facebook group, Comic Book Conservation Community. If you are doing leaf casting, take some pictures of your leaf cast under regular light and under UV and post them there. Let's see how much fun we can have with that. And until next time, take care of one another.
Thanks for tuning in.